Today, we are going to talk about how to affordably eliminate downtime for your organization. Talking about HA and how far it's come and why you should really be looking at it, and maybe some stuff that's happening in this space that you weren't aware was happening that has gone on since the last time you took a look at it. If you've been to our events in the past, you know how we roll. We meet productive in 1 minute or less. Then we get straight into the content. Here we're going to be talking about the need for HA. We're going to talk about, what is worst case scenario, cost, budget, and how to think about your environment in an effective way. Before that, and after my voice finishes cracking, we will meet productive and find out how we do it. So if you have a question, utilize that chat feature, and we will get your questions answered. Otherwise, let's move straight ahead. Who is Productive Corporation? Well, I'm very glad that you asked me, because Productive Corporation is a security and storage software expert for mid-sized companies. We have a great staff that can help you with licensing, technical questions, help you with implementation, help you figure out anything you may need to know without having to navigate that scary World Wide Web itself. In fact, they're virus-free is what we like to say, and they are very friendly. So we also implement, test, and optimize all the different products that we sell. We do a lot of stuff on the security side, including assessments, penetration tests, vulnerability assessments. We also do configuration assistance for appliances, for your UTM gateway stuff, as well as work with some RPO and RTO type of assessment. We also have tons of mid-market content, everything from white papers to videos. Check it out on our YouTube channel or at productivecorp.com/content. The bottom line is we have the resources to help you, help at productivecorp.com, whether it's implementation, assessment, licensing, or optimization services. We are here to help. You can reach us 800-726-4099. And one of the ways that we help is by talking about relevant topics in the mid-market. Today, the Knowledge Series is going to focus on high availability and how to affordably eliminate downtime. And one of the ways of doing that is through some of the HA solutions that are out there. At the top of the broadcast, I introduced Mr. Pete Greco, our VP of Sales and Technology. He is going to be running the show today and hopefully giving you some great content to noodle on, reflect on, and even question. And let us know if you have questions. But with that, let's turn it over to Mr. Pete Greco. Pete?
All right. Thanks so much, Todd, and thanks, everybody, for hopping on with me today. Todd, first verify for me that I'm showing the right screen.
You are showing the right screen.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm not going to put too much preface into this bad boy. We're just going to get this show on the road. We've had just a ton of conversations with customers where we come down on two different opposing sides of disaster recovery. Folks who are not getting the budget approved for what they really need to be doing because they haven't been able to really figure out how to vocalize or voice the need for disaster recovery. And then folks who come to us with really a high vision of what they want to do, but not a real business requirement to support, right? How to justify buying a ton of technology for their real truly limited requirements. So we thought a lot about that. We thought a lot about the conversations that we've had in order to kind of build this agenda and have this conversation. Definitely interested in having a one-on-one conversation with anybody who is interested to talk and strategize more about what you need in your specific environment. So why this need to be highly available, or where does this come from, right? You've really got two different categories that help build a case and help you identify what you need to be doing in your disaster recovery environment. And they're really fairly straightforward, right? The cost of downtime, right? How expensive is it for you to have a bunch of employees standing around not able to work, right? If your website is down, especially if you're an e-commerce site, your reputation is getting damaged, your customers are moving on to other websites where they can procure in their on-demand style that they're becoming accustomed to, and some of those folks may never return, right? That becomes a long-term repercussion. End users get frustrated. Some folks actually don't want to stand around all day not working. They become disgruntled. They become frustrated. They start making your life more difficult, or they move on, and that creates an employment gap at the organization, and filling those roles can be quite expensive. Speaking as someone who does a lot of hiring, it's expensive to hire, so we want to do everything we can to make sure that our employees are happy working here. Emphasis on happy and emphasis on working. And we want to be able to keep productivity at an all-time high. Right, so that's some of the stuff that we're thinking about as we're really trying to put together a plan to be available. What's the truth, right? You hear a lot of stuff about earthquakes and fires and tornadoes and this kind of stuff, and that stuff does happen. For sure, that stuff does happen, and that's why we want to try and get data off-site, right, and try and bring it back in and that kind of stuff. The more likely scenario that folks are faced with is, right, the disgruntled employee, someone who is deleting data as they're leaving an organization. Heard a great story a couple weeks ago. An employee identified that IT could tell if files were changing en masse. So rather than actually deleting data, she was actually just opening up all the Word docs, deleting the content, and then saving the file so that the file was still there. Right? Pretty clever. That's something you definitely want to recover from. Our scenario that we've suffered more than a couple of times: motherboard goes bad. Power, and the three that I have listed here, of course, are all things that we've experienced: bad disk, bad board, bad power supply, right? That kind of stuff. Brownouts, this kind of stuff is what's really happening that's causing us to have issues with our data, with our disk, with our gear, right? That puts us into a situation where recovery becomes a requirement. And then you also have the end user who accidentally overwrites that super important presentation, can't remember where they saved it, accidentally deleted it, whatever, and we want to be able to recover that data for them. So that's what we're faced with. That's why we want to be thinking about the ability to recover, and in a lot of cases recover rapidly. Right now, one of the things to start thinking about is the more available you need to be, the more it's going to cost, and that's what this graphic is representing here. So as we get to that zero downtime, right? So it takes 0 seconds to recover, and I've lost 0% of my data. It's going to be my most expensive route, right? And then on the opposite side of that, the longer it takes me to back up and recover, the least expensive I'm going to be. Now, 10 years ago, the differences between here and here could literally be as much as $100,000 per machine or per pair of machines to be highly available and go from my data is more than 12 years old, or I'm sorry, 12 hours old, to I have no data loss at all. In today's environment, the distance from here to here has absolutely decreased, right? And so instead of seeing that six-figure price tag per server, we're definitely down in the in the single thousands, making it more affordable. The reality is, though, is we don't necessarily need to look at our environment as having one plan. I'm either all the way up here, or I'm all the way down here, or I'm right here. With a lot of the products that we have on our line card, right, you're able to really mix and match these features to really tune in where you need to be per server in order to make it the most effective for your environment and the most budget-friendly while still being appropriate, right? And so that's definitely one of the things that we want to look at. So how do we even get started on figuring out, where do we need to be on the spectrum from here to down here, right? What are we worried about? Are we worried about data loss? Are we worried about employee theft? Do we have specific conditions that cause us a different kind of headache? So my company is on a fault line in California. Earthquakes is a legitimate thing to be concerned about, right? Productive Corporation located in the Midwest. We're located in a fairly dense area in a downtown. So even though tornadoes are a fact of life around us, they typically aren't going to reach into a downtown area. So not something that we're worried about, right? How many of our employees and customers can be affected by downtime? That's something that we want to take into account. Do I have a server that really only one person hits? I probably have a little more appetite for downtime there versus a e-commerce site or a server that all my employees hit. So I want to kind of weigh that in. And what's it going to cost me for downtime? So if my mail server is down, what's the cost of that? If my CRM server is down, what's the cost of that? If I'm missing a couple of servers, right, how does that go? And is it possible for me to actually lose money if I'm down for 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours? At what point am I actually starting to have to write a check because I've been down? So as I start adding these things together, that's where I can really start figuring out what I need to be doing on a per machine basis. And I really look at my machines in a couple of different ways, right? So the base level, as we put here quite cleverly, is this on? Right? We've got some test machines around here. If it took us a month to rebuild them, we'd be fine, right? If we went to an image from last month, we would be fine. That's okay. I've got some other machines like a print server. We need to do printing, but typically printing is not mission critical at Productive Corporation. We have plenty of printers, so we can go to an alternate printer. We still want to get that print server back online so everybody can have access to whichever printer they like printing at or as closest to their desk or whatever. But if it happened tomorrow as opposed to this morning, we would probably be okay. Right? We start getting into that medium and high critical. Now we're starting to see people are not able to get their work done, right? If we have an outage in this area, and this could be maybe more of my finance guys. This is going to be more of our kind of general catch-all storage drive where we keep literature and info and this kind of stuff, right? All the way up to our most critical machine where nobody is working at all if these two machines are down, right? So I definitely want to be planning my backup strategy with these machines in mind. What's going to accomplish this goal? How many machines do I have? How many users do I need to take into account? And that's going to help me identify what's a reasonable amount of money to spend on doing something like this. And that starts putting me down the road of what should I be budgeting and what kind of features do I need to be looking at, right? So for those most critical machines, I might be talking about an RPO, recovery point objective of 0, which means I've lost no data at all, and a recovery time objective of 0, which means I've instantly recovered. So I have a hot spare that's ready to go. It becomes the primary machine. If the primary machine goes down, my end users have no idea that anything has happened, right? Now, my next level from there might not be instant recovery, but maybe it's down to 15 minutes. I'm going to save some money by being able to do that, right? And it's still going to give me a pretty good turnaround, and I might find that bearable, and maybe even 15 minutes is, or I don't have to get down that 15-minute mark. Maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's 60 minutes is fine, so I can be missing the last 30 minutes or 60 minutes of data, but I still need to recover fairly quickly, right? And that's where I'm thinking about which of these machines do I want to create an offline virtual machine. Where I save some money here is in my failover mode. If I'm doing it with Exchange Server, not only do I need the rapid recovery software, but I also need a second Exchange license and a second server license because both of those machines are running. With an offline virtual machine, where I really start to save money is I'm just buying that server license once, I'm just buying that Exchange license once, right? And I'm backing up to something that's offline. That license is not getting used, so I don't have to pay for it. The only time that license is going to get used is if the primary machine is offline already. So again, even in recovery, I'm still using the license once. Now, my data can be as little as 15 minutes out of date, right? It can be as long as I want it to be, depending on the requirement of the machine, right? And then my time to recover is the amount of time it takes for that machine to boot up. So from off to on, how much time am I talking about? With our critical file server, we're looking at about 3 minutes to go from off to on. So our recovery, we haven't had to copy any data. We haven't had to transfer any data. We don't have to push anything out with group policy because it's an exact image of the production machine name and static IP address, and I'm simply going to start that up, and boom, I'm rolling. Now, we still have plenty of customers that have not virtualized at all. We're seeing them to be fewer and fewer. And we have plenty of customers that have virtualized, but they still have plenty of physical gear in the environment for dedicated systems and dedicated processes and this kind of stuff. And so for those machines, we might use an offline virtual guest as a Band-Aid while we're waiting for new gear to arrive, or we might not have this capability to run an offline virtual machine. And so there, we still want to get back up to speed as quickly as possible, and that's where we want to be thinking about how can I do a bare metal recovery to dissimilar hardware. Chances are I'm not going to be able to get the exact same unit that has gone down, especially if it's a year old or even older. So I'm going to need to get whatever the newest version of that gear is. And then I'm going to want to still be able to do as quick of a recovery as possible. Don't want to have to load the OS. Don't want to have to load my backup agent. Don't want to have to copy a big 500 gig, 750 gig, 1 terabyte file over before I can start recovering. I want to have one file that has everything, including the patched OS, including my patched applications, so that I can recover as quick as possible. And then the next thing that I need to figure out is, do I have any critical end users where I want to be thinking about laptops and desktops, right? So we've got some folks that leave the office, right? They store a lot of stuff on their desktop, on their laptop. They have their own private folders. They are putting a lot of stuff on the server, which is getting backed up, but I still want to take that extra step and handle their machine. And part of what I'm asking myself is, what is the cost of downtime for this specific end user? And a lot of times that's easy to see at the C level and maybe at the VP level or director level, but it's something that you can look at for all of your critical employees, regardless of what their rank or position is within the company, but what is the cost of their specific downtime, right? And that's how we start building that recovery plan. Now, one of the other things that we need to take into account for anybody with compliance requirements, for sure, it's not exclusive to the compliance crowd, but definitely they're a big part of it, is long-term storage. So I need to start thinking about, how do I keep this data? So I want to go disk to disk for faster backup and rapid recovery, right? But I can't store 10 years or 7 years or even 5 years on local disk. I'm going to have to get it someplace. So what's going to support my requirement? And there's a lot of questions to ask there. How big is that data that I'm trying to move off-site? That's going to help me identify if I need to go to tape, or if I can go to the cloud, or if I can replicate to a secondary location that I own, or my colo, or whatever. And then start identifying, do I need to get all this data onto tape? Does it have to be every single machine, or it just needs to be the email server, or it just needs to be the data from the file server, but not the whole thing? And these things will help me identify, again, what kind of budget do I need and what kind of tools do I need to help me achieve that. right? And so once we start compiling that information, helps us really identify what is our strategy, what's going to be the easiest way for us to accomplish our rapid recovery goal, and spend appropriately, so we're treating each individual asset the way that it needs to be treated to support its business needs. So we're not overspending on print servers, we're not underspending on our most mission-critical assets. Once we start identifying that strategy, that helps us identify the cost of downtime, which then helps us support a budget request, right? So if the cost of downtime is $100,000 an hour, it becomes pretty easy to justify spending 30, 40, 50, 60K on a backup project, because if you avoid 2 incidents per year, you've more than gotten your ROI, right? And whatever that number comes out to be helps you put in a budget request, and then it helps you identify what solutions actually support your goal, so you don't end up buying something that doesn't have the capabilities that you need, or buying something that is extremely capable but really far exceeds your requirement, which then probably leads to an overspend on a solution. And our goal here is we want to help you identify what is the right spend. We don't want to go over or under the target because that's not going to be the exact right solution for you, right? So that's what we're trying to put together. Love to strategize individually with you. Would love to have a big environmental conversation with everybody to help you really tune in, how to meet your specific needs, and that can start with a short conversation with your productive account executive. They can definitely get me involved or get one of our consultants involved to help you kind of figure out what makes the most sense for you.
So, Pete, when you're talking about environmental discussion, are you talking about how to be more green?
Well, typically that is not a part of my conversations, but it is something that we have worked with a few customers on, of how do they run a disaster recovery environment in the greenest way possible. And that's pretty challenging in some of those cases. But what we're really talking about is learning a little bit more about what your business is, what your requirements are, what your data center looks like, so that we can really understand how to help you get your head wrapped around it, so that we can get our heads wrapped around it, and actually come up with some great solutions for you to take a look at that meet your needs, and don't go over on the overspend.
Totally. No, absolutely. Got it. We know it. That is a great presentation. A lot of stuff to think about and kind of noodle on. You got to decide first, right? RPO, RTO, what is valuable, what's not as valuable. Everything's valuable, but kind of work that through the chain. But great stuff, Pete. Really appreciate it. And for everybody who attended today, really appreciate it as well. We know that your time is valuable. The fact that you chose to spend 30 minutes with us is very much appreciated. Your account exec will follow up with you after the presentation if you have any further questions, or like Pete had mentioned, want to talk a little bit more about this. A lot of times, even though the technology is similar, how you implement it can be very, very different. So with that, I am Todd Obert. Alongside me, Pete Greco, wishing you a fantastic balance of your day and week, and hopefully we talk soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.